Exposed, 7 spine-chilling paranormal stories that haunted Rdln'S forbidden secrets. The moment Sarah slid into the booth in the back of Miller's diner, the walls seemed to lean in.
It wasn't just the diner, not merely the flickering neon lights casting ghostly shadows over the vinyl seats, it was Rdln itself, a town steeped in darkness, clinging to secrets that rotted faster than the pavement. She sighed, keeping her eyes on the time as if counting the terrifying seconds until her shift would end. Outside, the abandoned community center loomed ominously, a place where shadows whispered tales of eerie happenings and unsolved disappearances. Did anyone choose to leave their fears behind? Earlier, while waiting for the coffee to brew, Sarah had dug through a stack of faded church flyers and forgotten pamphlets, only to stumble upon a yellowed newspaper clipping about the center. The words danced before her eyes like phantoms. Mysterious disappearances plagued the community.
Are the restless spirits to blame?
It was only folklore, she told herself. Just a way for the townsfolk to vent their fears.
But as the seconds dragged into minutes, a chill crept up her spine, awakening an unease she could no longer ignore.
She felt it deep like claws scraping at her thoughts. Life here wasn't easy, but it was predictable for the most part.
Until it wasn't. On a quiet night, serving late-night truckers, a figure caught her eye.
Mr. Thompson, the otherwise perfect neighbor, was planted in the shadows across the street, his smile unsettling against the backdrop of decay. It sent a chill down her spine, a gut feeling, sharp and invasive. In those stories she read, there was a character much like him, charming, helpful, yet hiding darkness that oozed like oil from a wrecked engine.
Each tale intertwined with the others, wrapping tendrils of dread around her very core. Did he keep a scrapbook of lost souls? How many had gone missing, never to return? Under his watch, suddenly, a crash broke her reverie. A glass shattered behind the counter, stark against the hum of the diner. The patrons jumped, eyes wide.
Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. Something wasn't right the moment the clock ticked past midnight. The hairs on her neck pricked. The diner's fluorescent lights flickered as if distressed, casting an ethereal glow over everything. She felt it again, eyes on her, a pressure that built with every moment. Was she alone in her dread? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening.
YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow.
If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference.
Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from.
I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen.
Now let's continue.
That night, footsteps echoed through her home, unsettling knocks rattled at her doors. She kept her children close, the fear thick in the air like smog. Suddenly, her phone buzzed, an ominous message lighting the screen. I see you, Sarah. The breath caught in her throat, pressing against the walls of her conviction.
Was it Mr. Thompson?
The stories whispered of those who were too curious, those who understood too late. With her pulse thundering, she knew she had to find the truth. She had to confront him. But as she stepped toward his door, she felt that suffocating weight of the nothingness behind her, of the secrets bound within the walls of Rdln. The chilling question loomed, clawing at her mind: would she uncover the hidden horrors of her neighbor's past before it consumed her entire world? The night stretched before her, a vast landscape of unknown terrors that threatened to spill over.
Here, in the silent echoes of Rdln, her greatest fears were waiting to be unearthed.
The air outside was heavy with a thick fog, swallowing the light from the street lamps like a hungry beast. Sarah hesitated at Mr. Thompson's door, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. She was sure it was him, the man who smiled too widely, who watched too closely. Taking a deep breath, she raised a trembling fist and knocked. The sound echoed unnaturally against the silence of the night. Seconds felt like hours, and just as she turned to leave, the door creaked open, revealing an unexpected sight. Mr. Thompson stood there, his posture relaxed, but his eyes hidden beneath the shadow of a worn baseball cap.
Sarah, he said, his voice soft yet dripping with something unnerving. What brings you here?
She opened her mouth to speak, but the words were swallowed by the weight of fear pressing down on her.
I wanted to talk.
The mention of conversation felt flimsy against the backdrop of her dread. His smile widened as he stepped aside, a silent invitation that felt more like a trap. With a final glance over her shoulder, she stepped inside, the door creaking closed behind her. The inside of the house was dimly lit, adorned with knickknacks and unsettling portraits that seemed to watch her with hungry eyes.
How many belong to the missing? Can I get you anything? A drink, maybe? He asked, still grinning.
No, I'm fine, she replied, forcing her voice to stay steady.
I wanted to ask you about the community center, and the people who've gone missing.
At her words, his expression shifted, the glimmer of amusement replaced by an icy edge. You shouldn't poke around in things that aren't yours, Sarah, he said, his tone dipping dangerously low.
Some secrets are better left buried.
She felt her insides twist. This was the moment where she'd find out if she was right about him. The stories, the whispers over coffee and pastries, all coiled inside her like a snake ready to strike. But I need to know, Mr. Thompson interrupted her, stepping closer, the air thickening with his presence.
You may want to reconsider your curiosity. It can lead to places you don't want to go.
The weight of his words was suffocating. She could barely breathe, the shadows around her thickening, crawling across the walls like tendrils.
Is it you?
She barely recognized her own voice, hot and trembling.
Have you hurt those people?
A silence settled, layers of tension scraping at the edges of sanity. The walls seemed to close in, the portraits watching closer now, as if eager to see her fate unfold. Then he chuckled, a low, chilling sound that echoed with menace.
You're right to be scared, Sarah.
But fear has a way of keeping people safe, or it can be the very thing that destroys them.
What did he mean? Could there be a darker truth tangled with the already fraying reality?
She stepped back, her pulse quickening. The stories were not folklore, the disappearances weren't unleashed specters, they were real, and now she was standing at the edge of the abyss, and just as she thought her heart could race no faster, the lights flickered violently, plunging the room into darkness. Panic surged, tightening her throat as she felt Mr. Thompson looming, a sinister silhouette against the void. Sarah, he whispered, his voice echoing like gravel sliding across bone.
Now you know too much.
She bolted for the door, adrenaline pumping through her veins, but it wouldn't budge.
As she pulled and pushed in frantic desperation, a wooden snap echoed behind her.
She turned slowly to see him standing closer now, a glint of something sharp in his hand, a shadow blocking the last glimpse of light. Let us see just how deep the rabbit hole goes, he said, advancing now, and in that moment, she understood she was in too deep, and there was no escape. But as her heart raced and screams threatened to burst from her lips, a single thought crystallized: maybe someone would come looking for her. Maybe if she could just hold on long enough. With her thoughts spiraling into chaos, the question lingered in her mind: would anyone hear her cries, or would she succumb to the sins clinging to Rdln'S shadows? Darkness enveloped her, thick as a heavy blanket, and Sarah's breath echoed in her ears like the distant tolling of a bell. She could feel it creeping in, a palpable, suffocating dread. Mr. Thompson moved with the smoothness of a predator, silent and calculating in the gloom. The only sound was the faint pounding of her heart, the ticking of a clock somewhere in the house, every tick echoing like a countdown to her impending doom.
Why are you doing this?
Sarah's voice cracked, barely a whisper but filled with fear.
Doing what?
He said, feigning innocence, a sickly sweet smile stretching across his face.
I'm merely giving you an opportunity to learn the truth.
His words slithered around her, wrapping tightly like chains. She felt her pulse race as she pushed at the door again. It stood resolute, a solid wall against her frantic assault. The ball was in his court now, and he was enjoying every moment of this twisted game.
What truth? Her words trembled, vibrating in the dim room.
He stepped closer, each footfall like a grim promise, and the glint of the blade in his hand caught what little light remained.
You came looking for answers, didn't you? But some answers come with a price.
A shiver raced down her spine as she struggled to remain composed. It felt impossible as her gaze flicked to the grim portraits lining the walls. They seemed to lean in, shadows pooling around them, as if they were eager spectators to her unraveling. I didn't mean to pry, she stammered.
Just tell me if the rumors are true. Is it you?
His laugh was low, reverberating in the heavy air.
You think I'm the monster in this story? You don't know the half of it, my dear.
The real horror hides in plain sight.
Me were just pieces on a board. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, casting ghostly shapes that danced across the walls. Time itself seemed to stretch, filling the space between breaths with excruciating anticipation. Fear clawed at her throat, and she willed herself to stay grounded. Stop it. Just let me go. I won't tell anyone. Ah, but you see, that's where you're mistaken. He moved closer, his shadow swallowing her whole. You've already told so many. This town is so small, and secrets have a way of unraveling. But can you keep one now to stay silent, Sarah? As he spoke, the room filled with a cacophony of whispers. It was as if the portraits had joined in, communicating in hushed tones she couldn't quite grasp. Each whisper carried a weight of fear, her fear reflected back at her, a mirror of dark intentions. What do you want? She needed to stand her ground, but her voice trembled with the weight of despair. Only your company, sweet Sarah. His grin twisted, a grotesque mask of delight and menace. And perhaps a little of your fear. In that moment, she stumbled backward, heart racing, breath quickening. She could sense the edge of madness lurking just below the surface. What did he mean? Companies often have an agenda. Did he want her to be part of his twisted collection? Desperation surged. Someone will come for me. Will they? He replied, his voice threaded with mockery. You've been forsaken by those who should have protected you. Out there, in the fog, there is nothing but silence. All at once, someone knocked, the sound firmly crackling through the tension like lightning splitting the sky. Mr. Thompson stilled, a flicker of surprise crossing his face, his smile replaced with a taut, predatory focus. We may have company after all. His expression shifted, revealing a darkness that sent a tremor through Sarah. Perhaps it's time for you to make a choice, he said, the blade gleaming ominously in the dim light. Will you run to the door and reveal your presence, or will we see how truly brave you are? Sarah's heart raced not just with fear, but with a pulse of survival. She had moments left to decide, to risk it all or find another desperate way to escape. The decision loomed larger than life itself, each second stretching into eternity, but first, she needed to know. What was waiting outside that door? And amid the dread, another thought struck cold: who was really knocking? Terror prickled at the back of Sarah's neck as she stared at the door, the knuckles of whoever was on the other side hammering with an urgency that mimicked her own frantic pulse. What if it's someone I know? She thought, imagining a friend come to rescue her, but the twisted grin on Mr. Thompson's face told her otherwise. Don't you dare move, he hissed, stepping back, placing himself between her and the door. The blade shone in his hand, reflecting her fear back at her like a predator's gaze. She could see the thrill he derived from the situation, it fueled his existence, coiling darkness around them like living smoke. The knocks grew louder, stronger. It pulsed through the room, rattling the old doorframe. Help! Someone's there! Sarah screamed, her voice breaking through the thick tension like glass shattering against concrete. But Mr. Thompson merely smiled wider, an unsettling acknowledgement of her panic. Help! He mocked, slicing the air with his knife. Do you think they can even hear you? This house has secrets, Sarah. Secrets that drown out even the most desperate cries. They might knock all night and still leave you here with me. As if on cue, the knocking ceased, replaced by an eerie silence. Sarah's heart thundered louder. What's happening? She thought frantically, desperate to break the stifling gloom. Let us make it interesting, Mr. Thompson whispered, conspiratorial, eyes sparkling with sadistic glee. I'll give you one chance. Prove your bravery. If you can make it to the door before I count to 10, you might just make it out. Why should I trust you? She pressed, pushing the words out as if they could pierce the thick haze of dread that hung between them. Because, my dear, trusting me is your only chance, he said, voice smooth as silk but dripping with malice. Ready? 1, 2. Her mind raced. If she ran, what would he do? But the idea of remaining still, of succumbing to his torment, made her skin crawl. With each number, she felt the weight of urgency pressing down. For 5 she couldn't keep herself from glancing toward the door. What if it really was someone? Someone who could pull her from this nightmare? 7/8 the time slipped away, each number crawling under her skin like ants. There was a moment, the briefest shard of hesitation in the air. Was she truly ready to abandon any hope of escape? 9. In that heartbeat of hesitation, she made her choice. Adrenaline thundered through her as she lunged for the door, her fingers grasping the cold knob. If she could just 10. But just as she turned the handle, she felt his presence, looming like a storm cloud. The door burst open with a suddenness that made her stagger back. Instead of freedom, a wave of cold wind flooded in. The figure standing in the doorway was shrouded by the fog outside, face obscured, but she could feel the weight of its gaze fixed upon her. She opened her mouth to scream, but no sound came. "Ah, good. Another guest," Mr. Thompson said, his voice low and predatory. The warmth of panic left her, replaced by something altogether more chilling. Who are you?" she stammered, fear slicking her throat. The figure stepped closer, and a single, grating laugh echoed from the shadow. "What you've stumbled upon is more than you bargained for. We've all come for you, Sarah." In that instant, the room pulsed with an overwhelming sense of dread. She had traded fear for desperation, but now it all crashed down around her. With every instinct screaming at her to flee, she felt rooted in place, caught between two terrifying figures. The choices she thought she had faded into oblivion as the truth dawned on her. What had she drawn upon herself, and how would she escape? As the shadows began to swirl, she realized she was not just a player in someone else's game. She was the prize, and they were all here to claim her. And their intentions were far darker than she had feared. Where would the nightmare take her next? The figure stepped into the room, swirling mist clinging to its form like talons reaching for Sarah. She took a half step back, but the shadows tugged at her resolve, threatening to swallow her whole. The cold wind howled through the doorway, slashing across her skin like 1,000 icy daggers. "Sarah," the figure crooned, a voice like rusted chains grinding together. "We've waited a long time for you." The words clawed at her mind, snatching fragments of her sanity. The air around her could have been charged with electricity, but instead it felt heavy, stifling. It was the weight of dark knowledge, of some twisted fate that had sought her out. "Who are you?" she gasped out, her voice trembling, desperate for answers but terrified of the truth. "It matters not what I am," it replied. The silhouette twisted, revealing glimpses of hollow eyes and a mouth that could stretch too wide to be anything human. "What matters is what you've become." Mr. Thompson chuckled, a sickening sound that slithered around Sarah like a serpent. "You see, my dear, you aren't just an innocent. You have something they want. Something powerful." A sick realization curled in her gut. "What do you mean?" she demanded, desperately hoping he wouldn't answer. But the wind howled louder, as if pushing him to speak. "The more you struggle, the more they thirst," he said, stepping further away from the door, giving room to the encroaching figure. "You've awakened forces, Sarah, dark forces that rage for resurrection." A flash of images lit up her mind, shadows pooling under her bed, whispers in the dark, nightmares that felt too real. They'd never just been dreams. They'd been warnings, hauntings, shadows of what had already taken root inside her. "Wait!" she cried out, but the figure advanced, its laughter vibrating through her bones. "What do you want with me?" "To claim you," it hissed. "To claim your spirit, your essence." "Stay back!" she screamed, her heart racing as she stumbled backward. The walls around her pulsed. Were they breathing? It felt like the house itself was alive. The figure paused, tilting its head, pondering her terror. "Ah, but you see, resistance is futile. You can't escape what dwells within." Mr. Thompson grinned, a gleeful malevolence lurking beneath his gaze. "You think it's just me? There are many more who will come. You only need one mistake." Suddenly, like a bolt of lightning, that moment of hesitation slipped through her fingers. Sarah turned and bolted, her feet pounding against the warped wooden planks of the floor. She flew past the specter, feeling its cold breath against her back. It reached for her, and she could almost feel icy fingers graze her arm. She had to escape. The door was her only hope. She lunged towards it, only to feel an invisible barrier slam down between her and freedom.
It crackled with dark energy, a spectral wall that hummed ominously. Now, Sarah," Mr. Thompson taunted, his voice dripping with sadistic joy.
"Where do you think you're going?
You should know by now there's no escape from this nightmare."
Panic clawed at her throat. Each breath became shallower.
She felt the walls close in, shadows grappling greedily around her.
What if there really was no way out? What if they dragged her into the abyss? But the figure moved closer, the features sharpening into something grotesque and alien.
"Join us, or be consumed," it whispered, its breath icy like the grave. In her mind, something shifted. A spark ignited, a sliver of defiance. "I won't be yours to take," she hissed, but uncertainty twisted through her thoughts. The darkness crept closer, more numerous than the stars, and every second felt eternal. With a desperate surge of determination, she slammed her palms against the barrier, feeling the invisible force react.
There had to be a way, an opening, a crack.
She looked into the face of her tormentor, a flicker of dread mixed with resolve. "Let me go," the figure laughed, mocking her fragile hope.
"Go? You're already ours. This is only the beginning."
The shadows danced wildly around her as she stood there, caught between choices that
could lead to ruin or salvation. Was there any escape left, or was she destined to be a pawn in a game of darkness?
The air twisted, heralding more chilling truths.
Which would claim her first, the darkness outside or the darkness within? What awaited her in the next sinister turn of fate?
She pushed against the barrier, a wave of desperation coursing through her.
The room pulsed like a heart, throbbing with life, yet completely unnatural.
It felt like the walls themselves were watching, judging, waiting for her next move. Shadows swirled, thick and greedy, wrapping themselves around her limbs, yanking her back into their dark embrace. She gritted her teeth, focusing on her breathing, trying to drown out the sense of impending doom.
"Do you feel it? The hunger?"
The figure taunted, its voice slithering into her mind, a haunting melody that stirred something deep inside her. Sarah clenched her fists, forcing herself to stand tall against the encroaching darkness.
"I won't give in,"
she shouted defiantly, the sound breaking the silence like glass shattering. The figure stopped, its hollow eyes narrowing.
"You misunderstand," it hissed. "It's not about what you want. The hunger is a pact, a calling that resonates in your soul. The more you fight, the more exhilarated they become." Mr. Thompson's laughter echoed, filling the air with a sick thrill.
"Ah, but you won't be able to resist forever.
You are one of us." "No!" she screamed. "I am nothing like you."
But the words felt weak as they left her lips, uncertainty gnawing at her. The darkness around her seemed to pulse with a sinister energy, lively and eager as if it were sentient. The walls creaked, a deep and ominous sound that made her skin crawl. Her heart raced, and the shadows seemed to close in tighter, infesting every corner of her mind.
What if they were right?
What if something sinister had taken root in her soul? With every ounce of willpower, she turned her focus inward. She pictured the light inside her, the small flicker of hope. The memories of laughter, the warmth of the sun on her skin. Shoving aside the whispers of despair, she steeled herself, yearning to feel that light expand.
"Enough!" she declared, channeling her fear into determination.
She pressed her palms against the barrier again, this time visualizing it cracking, shattering under her resolve. The shadows howled, a cacophony of pain and fury as they began to writhe around her. The room trembled, dust flaking from the walls like skin peeling away.
"Join us, Sarah!"
the figure screamed, its voice now shrill and frantic.
"Why fight it?
You'll only suffer longer."
But this was it.
She felt the barrier shift, a weak point emerging under her hands.
"No!"
she shouted, gathering her strength.
"You can't have me."
She pushed hard, feeling a crack form, and with one final surge, she thrust forward.
The barrier exploded outward, splintering like ice under a hammer. Stumbling through, she was free for a moment.
The laughter of the figure turned to shrieks, mingling with Mr. Thompson's maniacal cackles as it retreated into the shadows behind her.
"Run!"
Thompson yelled, his voice laden with malice.
"Run all you want. They'll find you. Just outside the room, Sarah's breath came in ragged gasps, but she dared not look back. She sprinted down the hallway, the familiar layout of the house somehow twisted and wrong. Each door felt like a trap, every corner a potential stalking ground for what lurked in the dark. Suddenly, a doorway caught her eye, an old, wooden door she had never noticed before. It stood ajar, the darkness spilling out like a living thing. Something pulled her toward it, an inexplicable urge, and knowing that maybe, just maybe, there was a way to escape the hell she faced. But as she neared, she felt the temperature drop sharply. Shadows flickered, and she heard whispers, her name, haunting and familiar. She paused, fear washing over her anew. Was this another trap? Or could this door lead her to salvation? Something deep inside warned her to keep running, yet curiosity gnawed at her, mixed with dread. What awaited her on the other side? The whispers grew louder, more urgent. Sarah stood frozen, caught between fleeing for her life or stepping into the unknown, where every instinct screamed danger. Which choice would seal her fate? Would she dare confront another layer of darkness in search of truth? The decision bore down on her like a heavy weight, and all she could think was what awaited her when she opened that door. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest, a frantic drumbeat that matched the rush of thoughts spiraling through her mind. The door loomed larger, the darkness behind it inviting and terrifying in equal measure. She could feel it now, a presence whispering secrets, promising to unravel the tangled threads of her fate. But what was lurking within? What awaited her on the other side? The walls of the hallway seemed to close in, urging her onward. Yet, she hesitated. The whispers became clearer, echoing with a familiarity that chilled her to the bone, her name twisted into a plea, an echo of innocence lost. It felt like the past calling from beyond the grave, and just for a moment, she longed to believe in the comfort it could bring. Sarah. It was a mere breath, but it held the weight of her childhood, the laughter in the warm summer sun. Stop it. She clutched her head, as if she could physically block out the voices that pulled at her sanity. The shadows congested around her, a pack of wolves ready to feast on the weak. But what if? What if this door held the answers? What if there were truths hidden in the darkness that could help her fight back? Shaking with adrenaline, she reached for the handle, her hand trembling as it hovered in front of it. Don't do it! A voice pierced the air, startling her. She spun around to see the ghostly figure of her mother, face pale, eyes wide with fear. No! Sarah cried out. You're dead. Her mother stepped back, the shadows curling around her like vipers. I tried to save you, but you need to trust me. Don't step through that door. It's a trap. But the darkness felt like a warm embrace to Sarah, wrapping around her like a blanket. How can you know? She shouted. You're just a ghost. You left me. Panic twisted her insides. Was her mother really there, or was this another illusion designed to distract her? The whispers grew louder, more agitated, clamoring for her attention. In that moment, it was impossible to discern the truth, the living, or the dead. She fought to stay grounded. Sarah! Listen! Her mother's voice caught, strained with urgency. You have to. The chilling realization crashed into her like waves on the shore. The darkness behind the door was alive, waiting for her to step into its maw. It wasn't merely a passage, it was a hungry abyss. A trap, just as her mother warned. A place where the lost could be devoured, forever trapped in the shadows. With shaky breath, she pulled back her hand. No, she whispered, more to herself than to the figure that flickered in front of her. I won't be lost again. The room quaked, and the walls creaked in protest. Shadows slithered into the corners like snakes retreating. From beyond the threshold, a long, drawn-out wail erupted, shrieking with sheer frustration, and the door began to pulse like a living heart. What have you done? Her mother cried, eyes pleading. I'm choosing to fight. Sarah yelled defiantly, her heart ablaze with fragile hope. But the moment she turned to run, the shadows surged, engulfing her. They tightened around her limbs, dragging her toward the abyss where she was certain something sinister awaited. Run! She screamed. Let me go! But the darkness tightened its grip. The house trembled as thunder cracked above,
shaking the very foundation. As she fought against it, Sarah caught a glimpse of movement in the edges of her sight figures, moving rapidly in the gloom, their faces shrouded in darkness and malice. An overwhelming wave of dread settled over her.
Who were they? And what happened when they captured her?
All her instincts reeled, and she wrenched her body away, stumbling backward until she collided against the cold, unyielding wall at her back.
There was no denying it, running was no longer an option. Sarah! Her mother's voice pierced through the chaos, desperate, but what would she do?
Facing the shadows or facing the unknown behind the door, either path held despair.
In that fleeting moment, uncertainty clawed at her. Would one choice throw her deeper into their cursed embrace?
The room screamed around her, and Sarah
knew she had to make a choice. But which one?
With her heart thundering against her ribs, she stood, torn.
What if the truth she sought was hidden just a breath away? But was she ready to confront it? She could feel the shadows pulling at her again, every second ticking away painfully. What would she do when the time ran out?
The shadows closed in, thickening like a fog around her.
Sarah's breath quickened, sharp and shallow.
Panic bubbled in her chest, clawing at her throat. They were coming for her. She could hear them now, whispers intermingled with shrieks, an unholy cacophony that sent shivers racing down her spine.
Was the door the answer to her questions, or to her doom? Sarah! You have to trust me.
Her mother's ghostly form began to disintegrate, flaring in and out of existence, caught between worlds.
You need to find the light.
A sickening churn twisted in Sarah's gut.
Light? Where?
Desperation twisted her mind, pushing her thoughts deeper into a chaotic spiral. The shadows were all around her now, their whispers crawling under her skin. She could almost see them, shapes darting in her peripheral vision, fingers stretching toward her, curling into claws, and then it hit her. Why did the darkness beckon her?
What if it wanted her to succumb? Stop!
She screamed, forcing herself to regain control. The shadows writhed as if recoiling from her words. They seemed to hesitate, forming a momentary barrier. Sarah could feel heat rising in her chest, igniting sparks of courage against the cold grip of fear.
You don't scare me.
The dark figures halted, a stillness washing over the room. In that silence, she felt a sliver of hope, and she took a step back toward her mother's fading image.
What do I do?
Remember the light, her mother whispered, her eyes filled with an urgency that seemed to pull at the edges of Sarah's very soul.
You have more than you think. Don't let them take you. But it was too late, the darkness surged again, unyielding. Sarah could feel the shadows thrumming with anticipation, the air thickening until it was almost unbearable.
She clenched her fists. The whispers became shouts, battling for her very sanity. Help us, save us, join us. With a roar of anguish, Sarah shut her eyes, arms outstretched as if reaching for an unseen beacon. Hell itself was fighting for her, it wouldn't take her without a fight.
I am not one of you.
The ground trembled as a pulse of energy surged around her, radiating warmth. The tips of her fingers tingled, and she felt it, a brilliant spark igniting deep within her spirit.
Was it hope? Light?
The shadow shrieked, recoiling from the glow that began to unfurl from her core. It exploded like fireworks, illuminating the dark corners of the room, pushing the figures back into the gloom from which they came. But as Sarah opened her eyes to see, she was not in the hallway anymore. The world around her shifted, dissolving into sparkles of light and darkness, eclipsing each other in a dance of chaos. The door behind her was gone, leaving her suspended in a realm that felt more insidious than before. She gasped.
Other voices. Echoes from the shadows. Sarah.
They called again, but not from her past. These were strange and warped, clawing to drag her deeper. The spark within her flickered. Caught between creeping terror and the remnants of hope, she hesitated.
This isn't the end, she whispered to herself, heart racing. But what comes next?
Just as she braced for the oncoming storm, a figure emerged from the swirling light, a monstrous form, eyes glinting with malicious glee that sent a chill through her bones. As its chilling laugh ricocheted through the air, Sarah realized her battle was far from over.
It was just beginning. What did it want? Would she have the strength to resist?
The shadow swirled, closing in like a predator stalking its prey. The real horror awaited her, and she was running out of time. Would she discover the truth or lose herself forever? The figure loomed larger, a grotesque distortion of shadows and light. Its laughter echoed, mocking her while it slithered closer. Sarah felt it in her bones, a palpable dread grasped at her heart, squeezing tighter with every heartbeat. "Who are you?" She managed to croak out, her voice barely a whisper against the overwhelming noise surrounding her. The laughter grew louder, reverberating through her very core, shaking her resolve. The figure tilted its head. "I am what remains. Leftovers of those who dared to fight," it hissed, a voice like crushed gravel, gnashing and insatiable. "But you, dear Sarah, you are different. You are yet to be consumed." Panic flooded her veins like ice. She curled her hands into fists, willing her body to stand firm even as the shadows pressed in around her. "I won't let you take me." Each word was a breath of fire, a spark igniting against the encroaching dark. The figure pulsed with energy, sending ripples through the realm. Such spirit! But spirit alone cannot save you. It leaned closer, the space between them warping, distorting everything Sarah knew. Coal-black eyes glittered with a haunting promise, one that dripped with a thirst for despair. "Tell me, my spark of light, what will you do when all hope is extinguished?" The question clawed at her mind. What if she couldn't find the light again? Doubt crept silently, like a shadow in the corner of her vision, stirring up echoes of grief and loss. The faces of those she had loved, who now gleamed through the murk of memory, ghostly reminders of her past. "Find the light, remember," her mother's voice whispered again, a fleeting soft glow amid the overwhelming blackness. In that moment, Sarah remembered that her mother had fought against the darkness, too, once. The strength coursing through her started to drown out the chilling laughter, forcing her heart to quicken. She had to cling to it, to believe in that strength. The figure recoiled slightly, sensing her shift in energy, but its eyes remained fixed, unblinking with ominous delight. "Feel free to fight, little ember, but know." The shadow's form twisted sharply, stretching and contracting as it insinuated itself deeper into Sarah's psyche. "I hold the key to your deepest fears, your most treasured memories. Imagine the howling despair you'll face when you watch them fade." Images flashed: her mother, soft and warm, now replaced by a cry of anguish, engulfed in shadows, friends laughing, suddenly disintegrating into silence, laughter replaced by horrified screams. A cold sweat beaded on her forehead, threatening to drown her. "No!" she cried, forcing her eyes open wide. "You won't take them from me." With that declaration, Sarah fought to harness the flickering light within her. All at once, memories flooded her: joyful laughter, sweet echoes of summer days spent running in fields, the taste of freedom burning bright. But they also held darker tales: the loss, the heaviness of grief, the shadows shrouding them all. The monstrosity writhed, losing its grip on her as she unleashed the memories. Light erupted, brilliant and white, sharp enough to slice through the darkness, pushing against the figure that loomed close. The air crackled with energy, the pulse of her heart harmonizing with it. "Leave me be!" she shouted, eyes blazing, fueled now by a desperate will that felt nearly unstoppable. The shadow shrieked, recoiling further, but it wasn't gone. It simply lingered in the margins, waiting, watching. Sarah could hear it breathing, deep and heavy, like an approaching storm. As she stepped forward, light surrounding her like an armor, another figure materialized nearby, a twisted, familiar face, just like her own, a mocking reflection warped by the shadows. "Will you face me?" it taunted, an echo of her fears. "Will you dare to trust that spark of light?" Every instinct screamed at her to run. But as the world around her warped and twisted, Sarah stood her ground. The chaos roared louder, a hulking tide of darkness that threatened to overcome her. Fists clenched, Sarah faced the figure. "I will fight, I will find a way," she whispered, though uncertainty danced on the edge of her resolve. An electric jolt surged through her, the shadows intensifying. But as the figure reached for her, claws extended, doubt crept back in. Would light be enough to save her from the gnawing darkness closing in? Had she truly found the strength to resist, or would she succumb to the depths? As the room around her erupted into insatiable chaos, a new scream pierced the malevolent shadows for her attention, louder than before. "Sarah!" She turned to see, was it a ghost from her past, or another trap waiting to ensnare her?
Her heart pounded. Every moment stretched thin. What price would she pay to uncover the truth and escape this nightmarish existence? Will she decipher the riddle of her own fight, or will she fall into the shadow's embrace? The chaos engulfed her, shadows thrumming with a frenetic energy, and the haunting figures danced on the edges of her vision like distant echoes of despair.
Every voice seemed to reach for her, clawing at her sanity.
But amid the tempest, a flicker of courage ignited within her. "I won't let you win,"
Sarah cried, her voice rising above the cacophony. With each word, warmth radiated from her core, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. The grotesque figure before her wavered, its form shifting like smoke as it hesitated, sensing the light now swirling around her, an undeniable force of will and defiance.
"You may seek to consume me," she shouted, "but I carry the strength of those who came before me, my mother, my friends. They won't be taken."
The shadow shrieked, a sound so horrific it sent ripples of discomfort through her body. The very essence of her fear was being wielded against her, but she was no longer captive to it. Clenching her fists, Sarah summoned her memories, not just the ones of joy but also the pain, embracing the full spectrum of her life. She grasped the fractures of loss, feeding them a glowing resolve.
"I am not just my fears. I will not fall."
Light surged from her, brilliant and blinding, pushing back the shadow that threatened to engulf her. It expanded, illuminating the void, casting away the lurking figures that had once seemed so intimidating.
The twisted reflection of herself shrank back, finally disintegrating into mist. "No!"
The malevolent figure wailed, retreating deep into the shadows as though burned. In that moment, she felt free, but freedom was fragile.
Sarah knew instinctively she had to keep moving. "Where is the exit?"
she whispered, the words laced with urgency as she darted forward. The swirling mists around her began to coalesce, and a glowing path emerged, faint but steady. Gathering every ounce of strength, she sprinted toward it, heart pounding, desperately hoping it would lead her out of this nightmare. As she ran, the noise crescendoed into a cacophony of despair behind her, a chilling reminder that she was not yet safe. She could feel the darkness straining against its confines, yearning for her spirit. But with every footfall, the light brightened, urging her onward, whispering faith and hope. Suddenly, she broke through into a wide expanse, an open space bathed in stark white light. The ghostly figures of those lost lingered at the edges, their expressions a mosaic of agony and hope. Among them, she saw her mother's image, alive and well, stepping forward with a warm smile that melted the shadows clinging to her spirit.
"Sarah! You made it!" her mother said, arms outstretched in a loving embrace. "You chose the light."
Tears brimmed in Sarah's eyes as she plunged into her mother's embrace, the warmth enveloping her.
"I didn't know if I could," she whispered, trembling with relief. "I fought so hard."
Her mother pulled back, holding her shoulders gently.
"You have always had the strength, my love. It was whispered in your blood, waiting to be awakened. The darkness can only grasp what we willingly surrender to it."
The shadows flickered uncertainly at the edges of the light, thrumming with frustration.
"Will they come after me again?" Sarah asked, fear creeping back into her heart. "No.
This time, you know the truth," her mother reassured, gazing into her eyes with an unwavering confidence.
"And now you will protect it. Light lives in you, always. Strengthen it by remembering who you are." Suddenly, the echoes of lost souls faded, their presence retreating into the mist. Sarah felt the dark grip on her heart shatter into fragments.
She turned toward the light, inhaling its warmth, letting it fill her spirit. It surged within her, a beacon she would carry for all to see. With renewed vigor, she stepped boldly into the path illuminated by hope, and behind her, the darkness faded into an untraceable void. "I will never let it control me again," she promised, her heart steadying as she walked with purpose, phoenix-like from the ashes of fear. Before her lay a new chapter, one she was eager to embrace. Without the chains of the past, Rdl'n and its shadows would be merely a memory, a whisper in the wind, powerful but no longer defining who she was. Together with her mother, they stepped forward, basking in the light of clarity, as the echoes of despair faded into silence. Each step felt lighter as the real journey began, and as Sarah walked into the promise of dawn, a sense of freedom washed over her, a redemption forged in courage, a legacy of love. Thank you for being a part of this journey with Sarah.
If you love this story and want to see more thrilling tales, you need to subscribe now. Don't forget to smash that like button to feed the algorithm. I want everyone to flood the comments with your thoughts and theories about Sarah's journey. It means the world to me. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need a dose of courage. Let us keep building this amazing community together.